Okay. So the PC assembly troubleshooting, or we call it the PCAS 111, the first thing that we need to discuss is the operating system and application software. Why? Because it is very important for you to know this. How do we differ these two? Okay, ang operating system o yung mga tinatawag nating OS, ito yung mga Windows 8, Windows 7, Windows XP, then we have Windows 10, then Windows 11. Sa Linux, marami. We have Ubuntu, we have Red Hat, we have Debian, we have CentOS, we have OpenSUSE, and a lot more. And then in the Macintosh, we have the Mavericks, yung mga yan, no? Then we have the iPhone operating system, exclusive for Apple.
Recording in progress.
Then, we have the application software, or we call it some utility software or application programs that can easily be installed. What do you mean that can be easily installed? Ito yung iba, pag meron kang installer is easily installed nga naman. Ano yung utility naman? Yung utility naman, majority of those utility are for applications in for protections, okay? For protections and security features inside the operating system. Iba naman naka-default. What do you mean by default? Or yung mga tinatawag natin built-in application programs such as Notepad, Tools, Microsoft Edge, yung mga luma, Microsoft Explorer, and so on and so forth. So let's start the discussion for the chapter 2. What are the ILOs, or we call it the intended learning outcomes? Okay, so in the intended learning outcomes, at the end of this lesson, the student is expected to, una, to understand how operating system works. Paano gumagana yung OS. Pangalawa, you'll be able to enumerate the roles of the operating system. Why do operating system is very important? What is the role of it? Explain and justify the purpose of an operating system, differentiate the types of operating system interfaces, and to understand some basic function of operating system. It would be followed by the general overview on how to plug and play technology works. Yung mga plug and play, no? Understand the use of application programming interface, to enumerate some of the capabilities of the operating system. So let's start the another ILOs expected to learn would be, kagaya dito, we need to describe the desktop operating system. So the characteristic of its desktop operating system, how the network operating system works, the common task for network operating system, and then we have the desktop operating system, commonly used desktop operating system, so familiarization. So we have to differentiate the similarities of OS, list all the attributes of network operating system, enumerate the most common network operating system, and determine operating system based on the customer needs. And for the last ILOs, we need to identify what does a customer require, enumerate the customer needs, identify the minimum hardware requirements, and understand the hardware compatibility needs. So let's start. What is an operating system? So operating system is the most important program that runs on a computer. It is the most important, ibig sabihin pinaka-importante. Without the OS, the computer will not run, will not boot. It only goes to the BIOS, or the basic input-output system. Ano yung BIOS na yun? Yan yung pag in-open nyo yung computer nyo, wala naka-install na OS, makikita nyo lang dyan, black and white screen, and then pupunta kayo ng BIOS. Okay, so set up yun ng hardware components mo. So the computer operating system perform basic tasks. Basic tasks, ha? Ano yung basic tasks na yan? Recognizing input from the keyboard, sending output to the display, keeping files and directories on the storage, then controlling peripheral devices such as printers. That is the process of the operating system. He will be communicating with the hardware devices. O o yung mga peripheral parts ng computer. So what are the four main roles of the OS? Manage the hardware, run the application, provide a user interface which can be easily adapted by the users, kayo yung users, and also to manage files, stored files, okay, execute files, and to more entertainment in terms of how to use the computer for the users. So what are the purpose of the operating system? So the operating system boots the computer and set up the file system. Without the OS, hindi nyo mabubuksan yung mga games nyo and the rest of the applications na ginagamit niyo. Yung mga applications, yan yung mga ini-install nyo sa computer. So there are two types of operating system interfaces. The first one is the command line interface, or we call it the CLI, or command line interface. The second one will be followed by graphical user interface, or GUI. The user interacts with menus and icons. Ano ang CLI? Ang CLI ay ito, yung CMD or command prompt. Yan. Okay, so itong CLI or command line interface is a black and white environment. So hindi siya actually user-friendly. Kasi nga, the one who can communicate with the CLI is the knowledgeable ones. Those who have trainings in administration in terms of computers. So during your third year and second year, pag-aaralan nyo yan. Then we have graphical user interface or the GUI. Yung GUI naman, yung mga nakikipag-interact kayo with the menus and icon. For example, in-open ko itong Microsoft, makikita nyo na yung mga icons dito. Whatever application sa mga naka-install, yung mga application lahat yan. Okay? So we call it the graphical user interface of the operating system. So the functions ulit would be file and folder management. The operating system create a file structure on the hard disk to drive to allow data to be stored. Okay, and it would be followed by application management. For the application management, the operating system manage all the program. So it's like a manager that managing all. Okay, so to ensure that the correct resources are allocated to the applications. It would be followed by controlling the hardware access. So lahat ng sinasaksak nyo dyan sa mga ports, ang in charge dyan is the operating system to be it's recognized, nang ma-recognize siya because of the operating system. So the operating system has the control between those application and hardware. Sa user interface, it will be very helpful because the operating system enable the user to interact with the software and the hardware. So si Windows 10 ay napakahalaga. Si Windows 8, si Windows 10, si Windows 11, si Windows 7, si Windows XP. Bakit? Without them, you cannot use your computer. You cannot navigate on the internet. You cannot use the mouse and keyboard without those operating system. Because the one who is controlling them is the processor that transmits signals to the OS. Na ito gagawin. May kumonek na mouse sa atin. Kailangan ma-detect ni OS. Okay, so plug and play technology, dyan na rin nauso yung mga tinatawag nating plug and play technology that which been recognized by majority of the operating system on its registry. Ang maganda sa Windows 10 compared sa ibang Windows na version ng operating system is the Windows 10 already has built-in and plug-and-play technology. Meaning, yung iba, no need to install drivers. It can easily detected by the operating system. Kaya nga tinawag na plug-and-play technology. Sa Applications Programming Interface, or we call it the API, the API allows the programmers to create software application consistent with the operating system. Kaya dyan papasok si Open Graphics Library, or we call it the OpenGL, cross-platform standard specifications for multimedia graphics, and including the DirectX na lagi nyo nakikita sa mga computers ninyo. It would be the collection of application programming interface to run for a multimedia task in Microsoft Windows. Any operating system related to Windows. May DirectX 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 11. So nag-a-upgrade yan habang nag-a-upgrade din ang mga computers. So the additional capabilities for an operating system, what are those? Sa isa natin. So almost of the modern operating system are this. Multi-user. Pag sinabing multi-user, it can access operating system at the same time. Allow multiple users to access it. Not only to access it, but also yung multitasking siya. Pag sinabing multitasking, there is a multiple tasks of process. Binuksan yung Facebook, binuksan yung Zoom, binuksan yung PowerPoint, binuksan yung games, binuksan yung web browser na may YouTube, and so on and so forth. We call it multitasking. Okay? How about the multiprocessing? Pag sinabing multiprocessing, it's how the computer support more than one physical processor, or the ability to schedule tasks between multiple central processing unit. Ang mga processor kasi ngayon ay hindi na single core. Some of them are already in quad core, into 6 cores, 8 cores, up to 12 cores, or even a lot of cores sa mga servers. Kaya nga ang operating system support all of those cores. Lahat yan sinusuportahan para mag-run. In the multi-threading, there are methods used by the CPU to process multiple threads. So the task within the program at the same time. O yan yung ginagawa nyo, no? Naka-open kayo, nakikinig kayo sa akin, tapos nagpe-Facebook kayo. And then nag-YouTube kayo or nag-games or whatsoever. Multi-threading and multitasking and multiprocessing would be the part of the operating system. So what are the examples of this one? Meron tayong tinatawag na the desktop operating system is intended for use in the SOHO. We call it the small office or home office. Ito yung mga ginagamit nyo sa bahay, mga desktop operating system o Windows. So with a limited number of users. So the network operating system for NOS is designed for a corporate environment serving multiple users within the wide range specific area. So what are the characteristics of the computer system based on this? Designed to support a single user, designed to run single user applications, designed to share files and folders on a small network, and designed to share peripherals and the small network. Majority ng nasa bahay natin are desktop operating system. It is a server operating system. Desktop lang yan. It would be good for small office and home office. Okay? So then, we have the network operating system. For the network operating system, we are talking about a robust or we call it the redundant. Makaulit-ulit o yung mga tinatawag natin pangmalakihan. It support multiple users. So majority of these are example of Windows Server. So hindi pa kayo nakaka-experience no kasi nga we are based on the Windows 8 and 10. Yun lang ang nakikita natin, even Windows 7. So ang mga network operating system is designed to use on a network. Okay, to have more users connected in a certain network. So it is designed with increased mga security features compared to desktop operating system. Siyempre, mas mahirap gamitin kumpara sa desktop OS. So what are the common tasks for a network operating system? Yan, mga file transfer protocol, yung mga pag-submit or mga bato ng mga transferring ng mga important files. Meron din mga simple mode transfer protocol or we call it the SMTP. Hypertext transfer protocol or the HTTP or in the internet. We have the lightweight directory access protocol, Active Directory. The network operating system are designed to function well in a client-server environment. Sir, ang network operating system ba mas mataas ang specs ng computer na kailangan? Yes, kailangan mas mataas because there are a lot of files will be transmitted to that network computer. And in terms of security, it is more secured compared to a desktop operating system. So commonly used desktop operating system fall into 3. Tatlo lang yan. Windows, Mac, and Linux. Kasi yung iba, mobile operating system. Yung alin? Android, yung iPhone operating system, or we call it the iOS. Okay, so dito, sa desktop, we have the Windows, we have the Macintosh, and we have the Linux. So ano pinagkakaiba nila? Siyempre, dominant si Windows. Mas maraming gumagamit kay Windows. So Windows dominates the personal computer world. Siyempre, pagkahawak nyo ng computer, yan na nakita nyo. Si Windows operating system na. Why? It offers a graphical user interface that which is very friendly to the users. Multitasking also and support many peripheral devices. Kahit anong saksak mong mouse and keyboard yan nare-recognize ni Windows. Ano ba si Mac? Si Mac naman medyo maarte to, or let's say hindi siya pwede basta-basta installan. Kasi nga may mga application na doon lang nagraran kay Macintosh. For example, the Mac operating system features a graphical user interface that utilize window. Some in the window can be utilized in the Mac, but not all, such as icons and all applications that run on Macintosh computer have similar user interface within the Windows. Ano naman yung Linux? Linux is a freely distributed open source. Pag sinabing open source, walang bayad. Kasi yung open source na operating system is distributed free, libre. Unlike kay Windows and Macintosh, proprietary to. So meaning, ito yung mga tinatawag natin, nagpapabayad ng kanilang mga services and yung kanilang mga tinatawag nating updates and even the use of their license. So Windows dominate the PC. When you buy a PC, majority of the PC which are installed there are Windows. Lalo na pag pumunta ka ng mall, lahat na naka-install dyan is Windows operating system. So how do we have the several similarities of this? We have the GUI interface. Then we have the standard look and feel, the characteristic of that. We have the multi-threading capabilities. We have the multitasking capabilities. We have the ability to function with the most of the hardware. So that is some several similarities. And it would be followed by the differences between the desktop operating system are typically related to available and how much can be accomplished using the GUI. So Windows and Mac operating system users can perform the majority of tasks through the graphical user interface. So si Linux and Unix users most understand use the CLI, perform some tasks. Ano pinagkaiba ni Linux kay Windows? Si Linux, mahirap gamitin. Needs training. Kaya nga hindi kayo nakakakita ng basta-basta ng Linux operating system. Pero kung naka-experience na kayo gamitin to, same environment, pero ang pinagkaiba niya kasi, si Linux kasi is more powerful in terms of security. So siya ang madalas gamitin in terms of network or security. For the Windows naman and the Mac operating system, it can perform majority of the tasks through graphical user interface. So much user-friendly o mas madaling gamitin ng mga tao kaya tinatangkilik. May bayad nga lang. Kaya nga may tinatawag tayong the system will be either open source or proprietary. Libre sa may bayad. Yung open source application, minodified yan. Maraming gumawa niyan to distribute it for free. Unlike ng proprietary, pag mamayari ng isang company, it cannot be read or modified. Bawal i-edit, i-read, or i-modify. So proprietary software agreements restrict the use of software identifying whereas the software can be used. So there are an attribute of the network operating system as much of the same functionality as the desktop operating system. Then there should be determining the numbers of users that a server can support. Depends on the factors such as the hardware specification. So the network operating system and physical demands on the systems. So ano nga ba pinagkaiba ni network operating system comparing to an operating system? Ganito lang yon. Ang operating system na desktop, ginagamit nyo yan na nasa bahay. Ang network operating system, hindi kayo makakakita niyan basta-basta dahil majority dyan, server. Ano yung server? Ito yung mga matatasang specs ng computer, ayun yung kumukuha ng mga process or filtered data na trina-transfer. For example, sa meron yan, bangko, okay? Sa school. What else? All those who are handling a big lot of data or files are using network operating system. Tandaan nyo, dalawang klase yan. Libre, tsaka may bayad. Open source ang libre, proprietary, may bayad. O licenseware na software. So the most common network operating system include the Nobel NetWare, Microsoft Windows Server, Linux, and Unix. So the most common network operating system but that must be included is the Nobel NetWare. Then we have the Microsoft Windows Server, yung talamak na ginagamit ngayon, majority sa industry. Ano sa industry? Sa bangko, saan pa? Sa school, they're using Microsoft Windows Server. Yung Linux, ang Linux and Unix kasi, ginagamit din naman to, mas mataas ang level of security, pero mas mahirap siyang gamitin. Kaya nga ang Linux administrator na gumagamit ng operating system na is malaki ang sahod sa industry because of the specialization. To determine the operating system based on the customer need, we need to select the proper operating system. Kailangan yung alamin kung ano yung kailangan ng customer to gain as much information about the customer daily activities as possible. Why? You need to check first the specifications of computer na meron siya. Hindi pwede basta-basta na mag-i-install kayo ng computer, ng OS, doon sa computer na alam nyong mabagal ang specs dahil hindi kakayanin yan. Kaya once you have throughout the understanding of what the customer needs, you can successfully select appropriate software and hardware to satisfy the existing and future requirements. Kaya what does your customer require? Anong kailangan nila? You need to identify the applications na kaya niyang gamitin at to ensure the compatibility issue of the operating system. Hindi pwedeng basta-basta tayo mag-install ng application or programs sa OS, lalo na kung hindi ito masusupport. May mga applications na hindi nagraran sa Windows 10, na nagraran lang sa Windows 8. And may mga games na hindi kaya ng i-run sa Windows 7 or Windows 8. So we need to explore the customer's requirements. Kaya you need to ask those type of questions. Ito, what general office application? Word, spreadsheet, presentation, PowerPoint, or ano pang kailangan nyo? Para makita natin yung OS na pwedeng ibigay sa inyo. Actually, commonly naman, would be a Windows operating system, which is very knowledgeable by them. Followed by what? What graphics such as Photoshop, Illustrator does your customer require? Siyempre, pag may mga Photoshop and Illustrator, mamaya pag-uusapan natin yan, yung mga graphics card, video cards, and even high specs of computer. Kasi even yung the operating system, wala namang ganun kataas na specs, hindi kakayanin yung mga application na yan. What animation such as Flash Player, mataas din requirements nito. What business application? Mga accounting firmwares, mga contact management, sales tracking, database. So itong mga to minsan mataas ang specifications ng computer, wala namang problema pagdating sa operating system. So once that you determine the types of software your customer requires, you should determine which available products will meet these needs. So before recommending the applications, you should review the existing operating system and software applications that your customer is using. So the following are some factors that you must consider. Ano yan? Compatibility issue ng operating system dun sa specs ng computer. Pangalawa, anong operating system ang required ng current application? For example, may nagpapa-format sa inyo o magpapa-format. Eh, ang kailangan mo pala is Word tapos ang baba ng specs ng computer. Okay, so siguro Windows XP and 7 would do. Wag mo install ng Windows 10 yan, kawawa. Magiging kawawa yung processor, magiging bottleneck yan. So, will the application works with the existing hardware? Isa pa yun, kung support ba? So, do any files have to transfer between the system? Is there an issue with the format and the file system involved? And are the applications standalone or network? Pag sinabing standalone, kung lang ba gagamit, o naka-network ka. Naka-connect ka sa iba. So as an example, your customer may already have invested in Windows-based business application. Kaso opera mo siya ng Linux. Wag, tuloy-tuloy na sa Windows. Kasi nga, nag-invest na sila ng Windows-based business application. So you would be invest and recommending them to use the Windows because they already know how to use the Windows. You would be trying to use the technology to improve their networks in the system. So kung yan, Windows na alam nila, wag mo nang pilitin sa iba. Kasi nag-upgrade naman yan. Hindi naman na i-stack ang Windows in terms of upgrades. Kaya nga, you need to also identify the minimum hardware requirements. It is very important. Why? Because the hardware requirements is the most crucial thing when we are installing an operating system. Suportado ba ng computer nyo yung Windows 10? Baka mamaya hindi. 2 gig lang yung RAM nyo. Kakainin yung Windows 10 ng 2 gig. Hindi ka na makakapag-open ng ibang application. So minimum requirements for Windows 10 at least 8 gig. Or even if you have 4 gig, much better. So meeting only the minimum requirements may not be beneficial to your customer for the long term. Your customer may need to upgrade or purchase additional hardware. Kaya nga, it's very important that we know the hardware requirements of that specific application or operating system. Hindi pwedeng hindi. Ano ba yung mga upgrades na pwede natin gawin? Pag alam nyo bumabagal yung computer nyo, we have the RAM capacity, increase the RAM capacity. Kagaya ng sabi ko sa inyo, kung 2 gig lang ang RAM nyo, basta ka Windows 10 kayo, make it 4 gig or make it 8 gig. Much better. Mas bibilis ang functions ng computer nyo. Hard drive size also. Change it to solid state drive. Ang SSD is a flash disk memory. So itong mga to mas mabilis compared sa hard disk, 10 times faster. Ang boot niya napakabilis. Then we have the processor speed. Hindi porket i5, i3, tapos mabilis na. No. Tanungin nyo kung anong generation. Kasi ngayon we are on the 11th generation. Kung ang i3 and i5 na binibili nyo ay second gen, Diyos ko po, 2003 pa yan. Okay, so 2003, yung iba wala nang supports niyan. Phase out na yan. Dito na lang sa Pilipinas, anong ginagawa? Nire-recycle niya. Kaya kawawa yung walang alam. For the video card memory and speed, you also need to check for that. So you need to identify the equipment that your customer is in place when you are analyzing the hardware requirements. If upgrades are required to meet the minimum requirements, conduct a cost analysis to determine the best course of the action. In some cases, there would be necessary for the customer to purchase new equipment. Totoo yun. For them naman yun. It would benefit them. So in other cases, it may be cost-effective to upgrade for the existing equipment. Yes. May upgrades. Abang may upgrades at may peripheral tools pa na nabibenta sa industry, do it. It's for the sake, for the long life of your computer system. Kaya nga in hardware compatibility listing, most of the operating system have a hardware compatibility list. So it can be found on the manufacturer's website. This list provides a detailed inventory of the hardware. So has been tested and is known to the work with the operating system. So there would be places on the list that required to be upgrading. So why is it important to have the operating system? That would be the last of the topic for the chapter 2. We will be discussing the chapter 1 because it's very important that you must know the operating system is one of the most important thing when you are building a computer. You build the computer, naka-build kayo ng computer, pero paano gagana yan? You need to have the operating system. Don't worry because we will be learning how to install operating system and application software.